Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope on this 15th day, right in the middle of the hottest sports month of the year. Not going to get to everything tonight, but we will get to a lot of stuff tonight. The big stories that I can think of. And of course, tomorrow I'll try to get to everything else with the Mad New Yorker. Brian Callahan fired. Going to get my thought out opinion of that. The Titans organization. First firing of the season. Coach, wow, 6 games completed. Titans went on and fired Brian Callahan. Give you a full opinion of that. Amy Adams Strunk, the owner. My thoughts on her as well. NFL Power 5, that's a big favorite. It's going to be different, folks. There's going to be some teams in there that's been in there, there's going to be some teams that have not been in there. They're there now, and there's going to be some teams that have consistently been there that are no longer in the Power 5. You will be surprised by that. Bills have problems stopping the run. Eagles have problems offensively all around. Let's take our first and only break. I'll be back here momentarily. We'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then. Now I am back here live everywhere. Okay. So much great football on there. I know there's a lot of firings. James Franklin got fired. Now, I'll get to that probably tomorrow. Talk a little bit about that situation with the Mad New Yorker. But I think the biggest game of the week was the Lions and the Chiefs. Let me tell you why. 2 teams that can possibly be in the Super Bowl last year, both 1 seeds. Of course, the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. Could possibly, although I don't think the Chiefs will get back, but they could possibly get into the Super Bowl this year. 2 real legit contenders. As I said Thursday of last week when I did the show with Mad New Yorker, did not think the Lions would win this game. For one thing, I thought that the Chiefs, wounded animal, desperate, 2-3, did not want to go 2-4. They're seeing Denver getting it together. They're seeing the Chargers fighting to stay relevant. And, of course, they did. They went on and won, of course, earlier that day. They knew they gave away that game against Jacksonville. I said I thought, plus Taylor Decker didn't practice all week. He ended up not playing in that game. That's their starting left tackle for Detroit. Big deal there. Banged up secondary, including Kirby Joseph there. And, of course, the other lead corner there. Just issues all throughout the secondary, including Decker. Desperation on the road. I just thought that Kansas City would end up winning that game. Did not think they would win the way they did. But listen, another 30-point game for the Chiefs. 13-point win over powerhouse Detroit, even with those injuries. Very impressed by that. The Chiefs, the last few games, scored 28 Monday night, 37 and 30 on Sunday night. 3 games in a row. Now with Rashee Rice, mind you, folks, Rashee Rice coming back from that 6-game suspension that from the car crash going back a couple years. He's supposed to be back. He's completed that 6-game suspension. Now, he's been hurt. Remember, he was hurt last year. It's going to be about a calendar year. Probably take him 2 or 3 games to get his timing back. I don't think he's going to set the world on fire. But you've got a Worthy back 100%, Hollywood Brown, those guys right there starting to come. Traquan Thornton took him on a prop bet last week, didn't even get a catch. Mahomes is starting to get everybody, Juju Smith-Schuster, everybody settled into the offense now. He said this, and they mentioned it on Sunday's game, that they've worked on, might have been Sunday, might have been a week before that. All their games are in prime time because they're coming off a Super Bowl. But he has worked on that deep ball because they've had problems scoring fast since Tyreek Hill left. That was a big issue in all season. You can tell that Mahomes has put in that work, per se, with this receiving core. Again, starting to score points, starting to get the ball rolling, even though that was against the banged-up Detroit team there. Like I said, now you got a true number one there in Rashid Rice coming back this week. So I'll say this, very impressed with them. Even now, I didn't put them in my Power 5. My Power 5 is, what's my Power 5 if the playoffs started today? Well, if the playoffs started today, and of course they're not, but if the playoffs started today on October the 15th, the Chiefs wouldn't be there. The Chiefs wouldn't be there. They got 3-3 record. I looked out throughout the divisions. They're not leading their division. Remember, the Chargers beat them already. So, that being said, they're a force to be reckoned with. They are looking like the team. I had them barely winning this division. I still think they will. I know a lot of the Chiefs haters don't want to hear that, but I'm a balls and strikes guy. That's what I do, okay? So anyways, great win. As far as the Lions, listen, they're going to get Taylor Decker back. Brian Branch got in a scuffle. Well, he slaps Juju Smith-Schuster. Something to do with Smith-Schuster. Put a low block on him in the game or something. And, of course, Schuster, Branch wouldn't shake the hands of kind of left Patrick Mahomes hanging. And, of course, Dan Campbell said it was inexcusable. He smacked him up underneath his helmet. Now, Branch has been suspended. They got to play Tampa this week. That's not good. But a slap cost you a game check. No freaking way. There's no way I'm losing my cool like that. But Detroit, very frustrated. They expected to win this game and win big, and they didn't. That being said, they're not out of it. I just thought that they just caught Kansas City at the right time and them at the wrong time, okay? So they're not in my Power 5 per se. That being said, I still believe in Dan Campbell. I still believe in this particular roster. Okay, Buffalo, listen. Man, this is 2 weeks in a row that if I told you at the beginning of the season that Buffalo was going to lose to lowly New England at home against Drake May, although they had Vrabel, and I told you I thought Vrabel would probably get them to about double-digit wins. I thought they might come up a little short. That being said, looks like they're going on a little bit of a tear, but I still wouldn't have seen them losing to Buffalo at home like that, or losing to or beating Buffalo at home like that. I wouldn't have said that. Now, I did say this last Thursday, breaking this Atlanta game down. I said, listen, Bijan Robinson, probably the best running back in the NFL right now. Probably the best running back. You look at Saquon Barkley's kind of having a down year. Derrick Henry's getting too old. Bijan Robinson, catch the ball out of the backfield between the tackles. Probably the best running back. I told people asking me, I don't really do fantasy drafts no more, but I do this Uber stuff on the side. And guys, what do you know about fantasy? I said, I'd take Bijan Robinson. That's who I would take. I think he's going to be the best running back in the NFL. Well, yeah, they ran all up 210 yards rushing. Now, that wasn't all Bijan Robinson, but I said they're home off a bye week. Buffalo is susceptible to the run. I can see a situation where Michael Penix converts third down. Penix was 20 for 32, one touchdown, but Bijan Robertson himself, 170 yards, touchdown run. Tyler Algier, 10 carries, 32 yards, one touchdown. Penix had 6 yards, 210 yards rushing. That is just unacceptable for the Buffalo Bills. Then on top of that, Drake London torched their cornerback, torched that secondary, 10 catches, 158 yards, and a touchdown. That was a total clinic by Atlanta. You know, a lot of people's going to get caught up into that. I know Atlanta got beat 30-0 at Charlotte earlier this year. But they also, if it wasn't for a missed dead-on kick by Younghoe Koo, they would have beat Tampa, as good as Tampa's been playing this year. Okay, they're getting better by the week here at home. And that defense to keep Buffalo down to 14 points there, a couple of turnovers there by Josh Allen there, and then interceptions. I mean, this is a problem. This is a problem. This is more of an issue for Buffalo than it is a praise for Atlanta. They're 30th now. And what team that won the Super Bowl saying that they were 30th against the run last year, or they were 32nd against the run last year? You got, listen, there's more to it than running the ball, stopping a run. But that, even in today's game, you have to have some kind of running game, and they've got a good running game, but you got to stop the run. New England, it's hard to consistently. You might be able to squeeze a few back in the day on them Belichick teams, but pretty much for the most part, they're going to stop the run. That between the tackles, that just ain't going to happen. Those Pittsburgh teams made the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, stopping the run. Baltimore, stopping the run. Last year's champion, not so much this year, but last year's champion, Philadelphia Eagles, stopping a run. Best total defense in the league, yardage-wise, okay? You've got to stop the run. I mean, ask Peyton Manning. All those Super Bowls he didn't win because he had a light defensive line. Teams would just get up there in that foul weather, whether it be in New England or wherever, and just run the ball all over. Run. It's a real issue with them right now. And listen, if they don't make the Super Bowl, and if they are 30th against the run, okay, not that many injuries. I know they put a lot of faith in Matt Milano, a linebacker. Where are your tackles at? Why aren't they penetrating? Why aren't they stopping these guys in the backfield? Okay? You know that's going to be the strategy. Let's keep Josh Allen, all-world MVP player. Let's keep him off the field. Okay? Two things they need to do, and I'm going to talk about the Eagles here in a minute, but two things they need to do. They've got 2 weeks now. This is crunch time for the Bills. They went and got Joey Bosa, a pass rusher in the offseason. He's playing, okay? But, man, they've got to go out and get a tackle, defensive tackle somewhere, okay? And whether it be with the Tennessee, New Orleans, DeMario Davis, I don't care. Get one of those players off the Saints, teams that ain't going anywhere. By this trade deadline coming up in November, a couple of weeks now. I mean, it's October 15th now, okay? They've got to get help in that interior defensive line, get a little bit more depth there, and they're going to have to get I always use Rex Ryan as an example. Get a guy like a Rex Ryan who's working with ESPN, go up there, help him consult the run defense, work with the guys, an out-of-work defensive coordinator, Wade Phillips, if he's still alive, right? Get somebody like that, very good at stopping and running the pack. Bring somebody in. Bring a consultant in. This is DEFCON 1. You lost 2 games. This is your year. I picked you to win the Super Bowl. Stop making me look bad. If they can't do that, this is what they should do now. This game happened on Monday. That should have been done on Tuesday morning, yesterday. Today's Wednesday, okay? So that's what they need to do. This is Kansas City still they're getting their footing back, but they got off to such a rough start, and they play each other here in a few weeks, I want to say. You got Kansas City, Baltimore's way down. The NFC, you don't really know. You hear my Power Five, and you're like, I don't know about these guys. I'm just giving it to you my Power Five. If the playoffs started today, these are the teams that I would use as my Power Five, okay? So this is your year. This is your year, Buffalo. Go out, get a consultant there, make a trade, go out here, try to get a Jeffrey Simmons, somebody like that from Tennessee, an NFC. I know it'd be nice to get Quentin Williams here from the Jets, but they're probably not going to trade in division like that. But I'd call them and get one of those players. But you've got to make a move. And listen, if this team don't get to the Super Bowl, you've got to fire Sean McDermott. He's just not getting it done. If none of that happens and this team continues to play the way they've been playing, and it's going to be the same thing, they'll end up losing to Kansas City again in the playoffs. Have you seen that movie before? They're going to get run on. They're going to give up 30-something points, okay? And it looks like Kansas City's playing really good now, like I just said, okay? You got to go out and get McDermott, okay, or fire McDermott. And you want to go out to Bill Belichick, you want to go out to Mike McCarthy, I don't know, whoever it is, but it's not going to be McDermott. It's Super Bowl bust, and that's what I would be telling McDermott if I'm the general manager. The ownership needs to step up and say something, you know? So really irritated the way the Buffalo Bills are playing right now, making me look like a fool right now. 30th against the run, and you're supposed to be his powerhouse Super Bowl team. That is just unacceptable, man. They got to get it together. Okay. Let's see. So, speaking of bad, go back to last Thursday. Let's talk the other side of the football. If I would have told you on a short week, okay, that the New York Giants were going to shut out the Philadelphia Eagles in the second half, you'd have said, man, you crazy. The New York Giants with a rookie quarterback, that's what happened. I went back because, a lot happened last. It was a baseball game and everything. But I went back and looked at that. I said, man. I actually watched the end of it because I'm waiting for something to happen for the Eagles. Got done with the show with Carlos, the Mad New Yorker, and got done with that. And I was looking at my phone. I noticed that the Giants were scoring, and the game was tight at halftime, and they got shut out and beat by 17 points, 34-17, in the second half. Okay? Talked about them being in the 20s against the run, long drought. I mean, I watched that game play-by-play at the end there. And I usually don't watch these Thursday night games, but I've got Amazon. I figured I'd go ahead and watch it. Because Scatterboo had 3 touchdowns. He had a great night. But it's like the fact that they could not run on the Giants, and the quarterback out there, Jalen Hurts, looked confused. I mean, I'm just thinking, man, another 3 and out. And they did the tush push 3-4 times in a row. I mean, they look. And I said this before. This looks like the same team, the exact replica of this Eagle. And I will say this. Now, the Scatterboo runs. Jalen Carter was a late scratch. He was late scratch. He had a heel injury late in the week. It was Thursday game. I'll give you the Scatterboo touchdowns and all that. I'll give you that. That's how good Carter is. But the idea of them just not moving the ball at all. And the Giants have improved up front, but the back seven is still very shaky back there. They've got a decent safety in Holland, but they're pretty shaky back there. And you couldn't hit Devontae Smith. You couldn't get A.J. Brown the ball. You couldn't get Saquon in the flat. You couldn't get a wheel route out of Saquon. You couldn't get him on one of those bad linebackers. You couldn't get any of that stuff done. You couldn't get none of this stuff done. And I made a note of this. This is mid-season. The 2012 Ravens, very good defense, little shaky offensively. They bring in Jim Caldwell, former Colts coach, worked with Tony Dungy, got him to work with Joe Flacco that year. Mid-season, folks, just like it is now, mid-season, they go on, win the Super Bowl. Flacco wins Super Bowl MVP, gets a big contract extension, and I think Caldwell goes on and gets a job elsewhere as a head coach. So it can be done mid-season. They're also in depth. I'll tell you what, I like to wager these games. I have a good time wagering these games, but I'm not going to touch until the Eagles do something about their offense. This guy's like Brian Johnson, the guy 2 years ago, could not get nothing done. Great start. They about what is it, first 10 games, and I've already talked about this before, kind of petered out a little bit towards the end of the season. They lost the division. They had to go on the road against the Tampa Bay Bucks and got smoked in the playoffs and had to fire both the offense coordinator, defense coordinator. Of course, we know what happened. Last year, they won the Super Bowl. They looked exactly the same. In some cases, worse. I think that's part of the problem. I think the fact that I love Roseman, but I would not have extended Saquon Barkley again. I wouldn't have extended two wide receivers between Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. I would let one of them play out their contract. I would not have done that. He did that. That's another error, I think, by Roseman. And they look bad. They need to bring in a Jim Caldwell type. Same thing with Buffalo. They need to bring. Buffalo needs a player, for one thing. They need a tackle. They need a Jalen Carter type of guy. And they need a defensive consultant. If not outright, just fire the coordinator at this point. You cannot be 30th against the run and be successful in the NFL. It just don't happen. Because everybody, the opposition is just going to run the ball on you and keep your quarterback off the field. And the Eagles, as talented as they are, there's a real issue. Nick Sirianni's one of these guys. He's just lucky to be there, guy. Not a real schemer by no means. When his coordinators are bad, he's bad. You can see the team's bad. All this talent. The defense can only do so much. You said, well, the defense is on the field longer than it normally is. They've had to make some personnel adjustments. No Darius Slay no more. They're leaning on very young corners, but they're getting a lot of 3-and-outs, that long droughts on the offense, very sluggish, predictable, out of sorts, doing the tush push 3 or 4 times in a row, looking like a rugby team out there. Eventually going to get Jalen Hurts hurt doing that. But so they got to make a move. They're in pretty bad shape right now, losing by 17 to the Giants. I wouldn't bet on them if my life depended. I just couldn't. You cannot trust a team like that. There's already dysfunction up there with A.J. Brown crying about not getting the ball, but now when you start to lose on top of that, and the whole offense is crap. And you got a quarterback that he's real quiet, he's low key, he's a good leader and everything, but he's not a vocal. He's not a Troy Aikman type. And I'm talking about Jalen Hurts. He's a very low key. When you hear him talk, it don't sound like a quarterback, But he's more of a quiet leader. He's kind of like an Eli, Manning in some ways. But they got issues they got to take care of yesterday. They needed to take care of last Friday because the game was last Thursday. So that's my big take. 3 games that really stuck out for me since the last time I talked to you. I know a lot of you are tuning in. I know we're 24 minutes into the program, but I'll go ahead and get this Brian Callahan. And listen, talked about this with the Titans going back a few weeks now. I looked it up the other day. the Tennessee Titans were 8th. Brian Callahan had got them up to 8th most penalized team in the NFL. First 2 or 3 weeks, they were number 1, the most penalized team in NFL. That's another thing. You cannot be the most penalized team in NFL with a rookie quarterback and expect to win anything. Defense. Let me go back to my Titans notes here. Sometimes I go off my notes, even though most of the time. So they fired. To say all that, 1-6 start. Let's be frank here. The one win was a fluke. Okay. The third string running back fumbles a ball. He celebrates a half a second too early, and he fumbles the ball through the end zone. If not, the game is 28-6 at that point in the fourth quarter with their offense. By the way, the worst offense in the NFL. Depending on what week you let, between 32nd and 31st worst offense in the NFL. It's not going to come back in the fourth quarter. And on top of that, then you had a fumble, 2 fumbles, and the Titans jump on it. So we know about that. Arizona lost that game. Titans really didn't win it. But that was they're 1-6, only win against Arizona. But comparable to last year, like I said, this team had gotten worse. They were 2nd in defense yards allowed last year. Okay. Now they're 21st. They were 2nd behind the Eagles last year. Now they're better off now this year than they were last year. I know Sweat's been out, the defensive tackle, but they're better on the secondary, and they're 10 times worse. 21st. Cam Ward's numbers, I said this before, very similar to Will Levis. And I think he's a better quarterback. He hits a better deep ball. I think the team responds better to him. I think he's better on the podium. But raw numbers, touchdowns, interceptions, completion percentage, you name it, very on par with Will Levis, who looked to be a total bust last year. Okay. Yards per game, turnovers, dead last. I just think that like I said, I thought Callahan. I said this in the offseason. Remember, let's go back to training camp. Mini camps. Actually, no, it was training camp. Brian Callahan calling the play to Cam Ward in training camp. And Cam Ward just totally white noising him out. He's calling the game in his earpiece, right? In the helmet. And Cam Ward is jawing back and forth with Jeffrey Simmons while Callahan is talking to him. And I'm thinking to myself, you told that story? And Callahan says, he tells the story to the press. He says, well, I was asking him, are you done yet? Do I need a? He's like, no, I can hear you, coach. He thought, hey, he was impressed, but he could hear me and talk back. No, you need to be quiet and listen to the play call. He would never do that to a Bill Parcells, okay, or Belichick, or Sean McVay, or oh God, what's his name? Sean Payton down up in Denver. I mean, he might have done it, but he got a mouthful. So, anyways, so now they fired him. And I've lost my notes here. Let's go back here. All right. And so Callahan's turned out to be a disaster. They fired him 20 games in the season, something like that. And now the coaching search is on. And the first thing I read, an hour, maybe less, that Ian Rappaport's saying, and I saw this on the X app beforehand, and this might have been from a team reporter, but I can't remember exactly when I first heard it, but I'm getting it off of Ian Rappaport, NFL Network. He says, the Titans fired coach Brian Callahan after a rough tenure that didn't even last 2 seasons. Among names to watch should be conveyed job or former Titans offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, and Chiefs offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, along with others. Now, you hired a guy, and Brian Callahan, who is, we didn't know that can coach. He wasn't even talked about in one of the biggest names to be interviewed when they hired Brian Callahan. You know, you're the offensive coordinator for a phenom quarterback that I've compared to Tom Brady and Joe Montana's ceiling and Joe Burrow. Okay, we don't even know if his head coach can coach. Zach Taylor, look at him struggling now that Burrow's been hurt for a while. Just about every time Burrow, they got Burrow because they had the number one pick. And this guy's his offensive coordinator, but they sold me on the fact because Titans had such offensive line issues, but he brought his dad in, him being just 40 years old, bringing his dad in, former head coach, can help him out with the ins and outs of being a head coach of the job, and he can get the offensive line coached up. He was the offensive line coach with Cleveland. They looked good. They got to the playoffs under a couple of years ago with him, with a lot of offensive line injuries. I thought maybe that'll work. And they brought in a defensive coordinator from Baltimore. Maybe this thing will work. Let's see what happens. But this guy wasn't even on the top list here. But going back to these guys, Arthur Smith, above average, one-year wonder offensive coordinator with the Titans some years back. 2019, I want to say, with Ryan Tannehill, caught lightning in the bucket. Mainly that was Tannehill and Henry. They put it together. They get to the AFC Championship game. A lot of that was Derrick Henry, offensive line in its prime that year. He gets a job, does nothing in Atlanta, fired after 3 years, pretty above average, slightly above average to average, the offensive coordinator with the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers. And then the Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy did get to the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky, with the Bears, but we know what happened there. Things leveled off. Bears got tired. They fired him. Two mediocre at best names that come out of replacing Brian Callahan. You know, meanwhile, the city of Nashville is paying for half of that dome down there in downtown Nashville. And I say all this because when Brian Callahan was sought to be looked after, when she fired Mike Vrabel some years back, that Ben Johnson was one of the then offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, was the top dog on the market along with Jim Harbaugh. And not one, not even a rumor of the Titans even interviewing or wanting to speak with Jim Harbaugh or Ben Johnson. Now, Ben Johnson later that year went back to Detroit, and of course the year after he went, which was this year, took over the Bears. That looks to be a successful hire, although it's still very early. Good situation, and we know what happened to Jim Harbaugh. He takes over the Chargers, who look like a train wreck. They get to the freaking playoffs last year, and they're fighting through injuries, and they're hanging tough right now. Got him matched up with Justin Herbert. Okay? So you can see the frustration here. I mean, how many of these coaches that she's brought in here, and she's the signal, she's the shot caller, she's the signal maker here, okay? She's the one that writes the checks. Other than Mike Vrabel, how many of these coaches have you ever heard of that the Titans have hired? You know? I mean, you know, I got this from my sports update, Ari Marvov. This is going back to 2022 under Amy Adams Strump. Fired John Robertson. Now, he was a disaster at the end. 2022, that's the general manager. Hired Ryan Carthon in 2023, general manager. in 2024, fired Mike Vrabel. That was the head coach there. Hired in 2024 Brian Callahan. Last year, or this year, earlier this year, before the draft, fired Rand Carthon, the general manager, hired Mike Gonzi as the general manager, and now they fired Brian Callahan. What kind of stability is that? So, John Robertson, Mike Vrabel, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, and all getting paid. She's still paying their buyouts. You know? So my thing is, Amy Adams Strunk, and I hope you're listening because I'm going to clip this. If I don't even hear of you trying to reach out to Super Bowl winning offensive-minded head coach on the market, Mike McCarthy, who, mind you, folks, not only we know what he did at Green Bay, win the Super Bowl and everything, 8 division titles, something like that, but mind you, under Jerry Jones and all his meddling and all his overpaying, he took the Dallas Cowboys and got their first road playoff win in 30 years. 30 years. Mike McCarthy's a good coach. He got everything he could, despite he's the one that said, "No, I don't want to coach here no more." We got lowballed by Jerry Jones, so he's probably the top guy on the market. Okay. Then a next guy. These are opposite of 40-year-old, 35-year-old hotshot coordinators who don't have that head coaching experience to confront coordinators on his staff and assistants on his staff to get their job done. Okay. But Mike McCarthy be number one. Number two will be John Gruden. Okay. John Gruden, you look at that tenure with the Raiders here. Now, mind you, Henry Ruggs, in the middle of the season, car wreck, woman burns up in the middle of the week. Crazy tragedy. That's your number one receiver. That's your leading receiver, okay? You had another player, had some outfit, threatened to shoot somebody or something. Second round pick, I can't remember his name, had to cut him. And he being investigated for some private emails that had nothing to do with him, forced out of the league, forced out of that job, that said some racial remarks or whatever. But later on, that team that he worked with under Mark Davis, who's another flaky owner, they got to the playoffs. Derek Carr and all those guys. And he's chomping, he's with Barstool. He's chomping at the bit to get back into coach. Now, both these guys, 61, 62 years old, early 60s, and both of them, especially John Gruden, looks like he's about my age, maybe a year or two. He looks about 45, you know. And Mike McCarthy, I just mentioned that. Those two guys, if she doesn't even, and I know this is what's going to happen. I can just see it. I can see this. But I'm telling you right now, if she hires Arthur Smith or Matt Nagy, I'm telling you right now, Amy Adams, I'm looking in the camera and telling you, you need to go ahead and sell the team. Now, it's time to move on. You know, I said the same thing about Daniel Snyder with the Washington Commanders. I said, man, at this point, this guy, you know, it's just bad coach, bad free agent hiring. It's just one. And then, of course, you had the other off the field scandals and everything. First year, they get to the NFC Championship. As soon as he sells the team, NFC Championship team. You know, and now they're right in the thick of things, even though they did lose Monday. Got a quarterback there. They got a pretty good staff there, management. A good 1-2 coach, coordinator. But again, I'm telling you right now, I'll cover them, but I'm just not going to get. I'm not a public relation guy. I've said this. If she goes out and it's the one that pulls it, she's the one that signs the paychecks. Mark my word. Why? There used to be an old, I can't remember the name of it, but it used to be an old spark plug commercial. And I used to watch it when I was watching these big races with my dad or my stepdad or whatever. They're both like, NASCAR and everything. But you spend a little more now or a lot later on another buyout. Okay? But mind you, the city is paying for that dome that's going to be done in 2027. You've got a rookie, and I think Cam Ward can play. I like his leadership skills. Even though he's got Will Levis-like numbers, I think that he's got that back shoulder. He's getting better every week at that. I like the way he throws the deep ball. He needs to work on a few things, but I think he's going to make it. But I'm telling you right now, you try to sell us a bunch of nonsense, and I bought it. I bought nonsense after nonsense. And she's been the owner since the dad died. I've been buying it for years, and the local radio station. And I bring in my guy, Rich, and I've asked him to help me possibly get a job on there. But the more I think about it, I'm going to tell him what I really think through Cumulus, which also carries the games, that if she does it, she wanted to hire one of these clowns and cut costs initially and not go after a big name coach, take a chance. You might get a little bad press if you hire John Gruden because of his emails or whatever, which is nonsense. But if you want to hire a Matt Nagy or an Arthur Smith type or some other clown, 35, 40-year-old Sean McVay assistant that's not even been a coordinator 1 year, I'm telling you right now, my advice is sell the team. That's what I think we should start. Don't show up to the games. Do not support these people. Don't renew your PSLs and start a chant. I don't know if you want to start a petition. Every time you see her, every time she's out in public, sell the team. Sell the team. Woody Johnson, I said that from the get-go, that Aaron Glenn was going to be an awful hire. And what's his name? Justin Fields, that they're set up to get the number 1 overall pick. They're 0-6. Woody Johnson, you look at all these quarterbacks that come on through there. Sam Darnold, just player after player. That's another guy. He needs to sell the team. But particularly Amy Adams, you see the constant that wash. And I'm glad some of the national media is starting to pick up on this. But it's really got to a point now. You bring in one more clown here, and eventually you are the problem. You are the problem. Are you trying to make headlines with the firings and the hirings and all that? That's what the Jets do. That's what the Mets used to do. Teams that are always down in the dump. The Cleveland Browns, although they've done some good things over the years. So that's my advice. Go out, get a real coach, spend the money, don't worry about the critics, and get it done right. Okay? Okay. And if not, at this point, she's the problem. Just sell the team. Sell the team. You're not your father. You don't have an eye for talent. I don't think you like any negative press. I think you like to play it safe. But if that's it, I'm just telling you, before it happens, that's my take on it. And I'm not going to give them that. I don't care if I am in Nashville. This is a national show. That's why I got New York City in the background and not Nashville. Okay? Because I'm better than most of the people out here, and these clowns here, for whatever reason, got the job because for God knows what. But I'm just telling you right now, I'm tired of dealing with this. I've been bought and sold a bill of goods. I'm not going to deal with it no more. I'm just going to call it like I see it. Go out and hire a clown. Do clown things, win clown prizes. Is that play clown games, win clown prizes or whatnot? So that's my take on that. If you don't hire a big-time coach, go big or go home. Go back to Houston somewhere. Sell this team. There's plenty of buyers out there who love to put the right amount of money in the organization. This is one of the fastest-growing, most popular cities in America. Yeah, they're going to get the Dome built. Yeah, they'll get a Super Bowl here. Yeah, they'll get the Final Four here. Yeah, we've already had the draft here. Amazing success in 2019. I drive Uber around town, and people are asking me, why is this team such a bunch of clown shows? Well, because the owner does not want to make the right step and hire the right coach. Look at Denver. All that millions and millions of dollars in dead cap money from the Russell Wilson debacle. They bring in Sean Payton, bam. Man, playoffs last year, they're in good shape this year already. Do the right, spend the big money, do it right, spend a little more now or a lot later. And you're already paying back coaches and three or four coaches and GMs she's paying back. She's still paying out. So anyways, it gets on my nerves, gets a little hot under the collar. That's my big take there on the Tennessee Titans. I know a lot of you have wanted to hear that. Okay, Power 5. I didn't realize how much I knew I would be. Let's go over the Power 5, folks. Number 5. Indianapolis. I've said this before. I know they've had a light schedule, but you have to play the schedule that's given to you. And I've said this in the offseason. Daniel Jones might have a chance when you've got that offensive line. They've got a good offensive line. According to Pro Football Focus, they got the number 1 offensive line coming into this week in the NFL. Better than Philadelphia. Best offensive line. Best point differential. Really beating up on the bad teams. Really showing up. Daniel Jones. Man, this guy may win Comeback Player of the Year. 71% completion percentage. 8 touchdowns. 3 interceptions. 76 yards rushing. 4 touchdowns. The defensive line is number 12, according to Pro Football Focus. Got them at number 5. Hey, they're 5-1. They're leading the division. They're a handful of plays away from beating the Rams in L.A., which one of the better teams in the league. Number 5, Indianapolis. Number 4, listen, it was not all bad about, hey, Buffalo this, Buffalo that. Atlanta, once they get the running game going, I said the other day or earlier in this program, Bijan Robinson, best running back in the NFL, pound for pound, in my opinion. We saw the amount of yards he had last week, 170 yards. We saw the 10-catch game out of Drake London. By the way, the Atlanta Falcons, number one defensive yardage per game average in the NFL. 14 points allowed to one of the high-power Buffalo Bills. Atlanta in the playoffs, if the playoffs started today, playing really good football right now. A team I wouldn't want to mess with. They finally fixed their pass rush here. Got to Allen a couple of times the other night. They're number 4 in my Power 5. Seattle, number 3. Listen, I've been down on Seattle. Did not think they was going to beat Jacksonville. I thought Jacksonville would win that game. Did not think they would beat Pittsburgh. Went on the road, won that game. Thought, and I know they've had some injuries, thought they would beat Tampa. Man, they're just a fluke play away, 2 fluke plays away from beating Tampa. Quite frankly, they could have beat Frisco earlier in the season. They should be 6-0. That's how tight their games have been. And Sam Darnold, man, that's another guy. I thought him going to a defensive-minded head coach there in that culture up in Seattle, I didn't think he was going to be as good as he was under O'Connell down in Minnesota. I was wrong. 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions there, really developing that chemistry with – and that, mind you, they lost DK Metcalf. They lost Tyler Lockett, okay? Jackson Smith and Jigma setting it on fire. Another huge game out of JSN last week. So got them at number 3 for Seattle. Listen, Detroit, number 2. Man, Robert, what are you talking about? They lost last week. I predicted they would lose last week. They just had a flood of injuries. They're going to get these players back. Even Arnold, the cornerback I was trying to think of earlier, including Taylor Decker. I understand that. But listen, you're still talking about one of the best offenses in the NFL from a consistency standpoint here, either 1 or 2 in yards and points per game. I expect them to bounce back and do big things. I do think that that this team will play well as the season goes along. I still believe in Detroit, even though they're not first in their division. Okay? Tampa. Listen, Tampa's doing it with injuries. Still winning. They're going to get Mike Evans back. Mike Evans had a hamstring problem every year. Every year. But as the season goes along, he gets better and better and better. They're going to get Mike Evans back. They're going to get Godwin back. Mekabuka's almost dead bang lock rookie of the year right now. He got hurt in that game against San Francisco, another team that's played really well despite injuries. And they still won. Baker Mayfield playing like just a straight-up MVP. A lot of these games have been without his left tackle. He's got Wirfs back. 12 touchdowns, 1 interception. And, of course, Bucky Urban was out again last week. They're still winning. They're beating playoff-like teams. Beat Seattle, okay? They beat Atlanta, although it was a little bit of a fluke. Atlanta's also in my top 5, all right? They beat San Francisco, a team that would be in the playoffs. That's 3 teams right there. They got to play Detroit this week. I don't know how many play. I know they're not going to have Broad Branch back, but let's see how that works out. Tampa beat Houston on the road. Big road games. A lot of injuries. A lot of those players coming back. Right now, I've got them as the number 1 team in the NFL. You say, so you've got Tampa, Detroit. Let me see here. Atlanta and Indianapolis as my top 5 teams. You said, well, what about your powerhouse quarterbacks? Buffalo Bills, they're 30th against the run. They got some problems, okay? What about Kansas City? Could Kansas City beat all these guys? Yes. But now Power 5 is if the playoffs started today, Kansas City's 3-3 record-wise, they would not get in. They would not get one of those wild cards. They wouldn't get one. They wouldn't get one. Remember, they lost to the Chargers. So the Chargers have the tiebreaker over them. Okay? So, remember, New England's leading the NFC East, so Buffalo would get one of those wild cards. Denver. So that puts out Kansas City. Now, will this change in another week or so? Probably. Kansas City will be probably back in there, number 1. Okay? So that is my top 5 there. Okay? I know we've got a lot to get to tomorrow. I know James Franklin, that shocked me too. Fired. Going to talk about that with the Mad New Yorker. I'll give you my opinion there. A little shocked by that, be honest with you. Even though I know that they've had a disappointing season, I just thought, man, all that money they owe him, plus the money for NIL, I'm not so sure. We'll get into that tomorrow. Plus, like I said, I'll go over the 5 biggest games with the Mad New Yorker as well. Indiana. Today is Wednesday. That game happened on Saturday. I still can't believe that Indiana went from Bloomington all the way to Eugene and beat them up there in Eugene, Oregon by 10 points. There's no telling what kind of odds you would have got on that. I still can't believe it. Ohio State couldn't do it last year, and they won a national championship, but Indiana does it this year. So we'll talk about that as well. We'll go over this week's biggest games. And, hey, listen, there's big games every week. It's just the college football, the NFL. It is what it is. So, anyways, if you like the show, folks, share the show. Want to thank all my Uber riders, my new subscribers here. A guy I met, and I can't remember his name. I want to say Hayden. A guy from Clemson University, my man. Picked you up yesterday. Appreciate you subscribing to the show. My friend, I think his name was Hayden from my man. That's he's an engineer, big Dodger fan. I remember that. My friend there said you're a big Dodger fan. Said you're a big Packer fan. Appreciate the tip yesterday, and I think you subscribed to one of my channels here, and I want to thank you for that. So, folks, please, if you like the show, share the show. Took a lot of time just to get this much content in. Time is money, so I really hope that you all share it and get these follower counts up and get me into a bigger platform and start making me a little bit of money here. Okay? So have a good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place here on The Real Sports